Let's discuss the law of obligations. What is a legal obligation? A legal obligation is defined on slide number 61. I think it's slide number 64. Right, a legal obligation is a legal tie. What are we talking about? We're talking about a legal tie between legal subjects. What brings legal subjects together? Right. So when we're talking about legal obligations, we're talking about a legal tie between legal subjects. And that legal tie is recognized by law, and it creates rights and duties. So we are saying for these people to come together, there has to be something. And that something, what brings them together, it may be contract, number one, contract, it may be delict, and it may be unjustified enrichment. Although these parties may come together, there has to be something that brings them together. For instance, we are looking at a contract. If parties decide to enter into a contract, let's say a contract of marriage or a contract of employment, these parties will find themselves in a relationship. For instance, the employer, employee, or even the lessor, lessee in a lease contract. So what brings them together is the contract of lease or contract of employment. Then we have what is called a delict. In delict, parties do not choose to be in a relationship, but they are forced by circumstances to be in a relationship. For instance, a delict is a wrongful act. For instance, let's say you assault someone or you write an article lying about a certain person. So if that person wants to sue you, now you'll be in a relationship. For instance, he has to claim money from you because you have written an article about him. So you find yourselves in a relationship where law says that in that relationship you are supposed to pay as the wrongdoer. So that relationship ends after you have paid the person who has been wronged. So this is delict. We are going to discuss it in detail. Then another fact that brings about this legal obligation is unjustified enrichment. With unjustified enrichment, it's not a delict, there is no contract at all, but parties find themselves in a legal tie or a relationship where one has to claim from the other. For instance, let's say that your neighbor has gone to the UK and you see that maybe his house his roof is leaking, and you decide to be a good Samaritan. Then you go to Halstead, you purchase maybe, let's say, roofing sheets, and you roof your neighbor's house. There is no agreement with your neighbor. So when he comes from the UK, law says that you have to be compensated for that, though there is no agreement, there is no contract. So if he refuses, you can take him to court and say, your neighbor has been enriched at your expense without any justification. So you can actually have a claim in court called unjustified enrichment, because what it means is that your neighbor has gained an advantage, or his estate has grown, or he has benefited without any compensation given to you. So you can claim in court. So let's quickly go to delict, because contract, we are going to discuss contracts later, but let's quickly discuss delict. What is a delict? A delict is an unlawful or wrongful act by a person who is the wrongdoer, which causes another person damage to property or injury to personality, and for which a civil remedy for recovery of damage is available. So a delict is an unlawful or wrongful act. There is a difference between an unlawful act and a wrongful act. For instance, unlawful, it has to be against the act. It has to be against maybe even common law, or for instance, killing another person, or even assaulting another person, or insulting someone. It can be unlawful and even wrongful sometimes, but there are certain things that are wrongful but not necessarily unlawful. For instance, you have adultery. Adultery is wrongful because one can sue, but no one can go to prison for committing adultery. Otherwise, most men will be in prison. Actually, it's a wrongful act, but not an unlawful act. So a delict, unlawful or wrongful act, and if that happens, right, if there is an unlawful act, wrongful act, that act must cause damage to property. Either someone's property has been destroyed. For instance, if we are talking about malicious damage to property, one's property has been damaged, or someone has lost money, something has lost something of value. For instance, he has lost money, and it can sometimes lead to injury to personality. Sometimes you may say, no, we cannot actually quantify the loss to say, okay, we have lost so much, but actually it may be maybe injury to personality, where you say, no, what he did really embarrassed me. I was embarrassed, or my dignity was infringed, right to dignity was infringed. For instance, if someone just stands up in class and starts insulting you, even if you claim money from that person, but actually you won't be taken back to the position you were before the insult. So we are saying this is injury to personality. And when this happens, you claim damages. So in law, you suffer damage and you can claim damages. When we're talking about damages, we are talking about money. And there are elements that you have to prove in a delict. And these are 5. There are 5 elements. Number 1, you have to prove that there was an act of conduct. And that act of conduct was wrongful. And that wrongdoer was at fault. And also the act caused the patrimonial loss or damage. Let's say damage or harm. So these are the 5 elements which you have to prove. And if one of these elements is missing, then there is no delict at all. Let's start with an act or conduct. An act or conduct. What is an act or conduct? An act is described as a person's conduct determined by his will. This is what you want to do. This is determined by your will. For instance, if you want to lie about someone and you go to maybe the Herald or the Chronicle and you just cause a story to be published about someone, when in actual fact you know that you are lying. Okay, that's a conduct which is determined by your will. Right, but when a person acts maybe while in a state of automatism, or he doesn't understand what he's doing. For instance, someone is driving along, let's say, Gwanda Road, and is stung by a bee. And because he's stung by a bee, he loses control of the vehicle and rams into another vehicle. So we can say this person did not act at law, because his conduct is not determined by his will. This is not what he wanted to do, but is forced by the circumstances. So this person has not acted at law, and therefore he is not liable in delict. Right. Conduct can be negative or positive. Positive in the fact that maybe you do something. For instance, you assault someone with a brick, you slap someone, or you insult someone. So this is positive. You are doing something. And again, it can be negative. For instance, failure to do something where you have a duty to do something. For instance, let's say that a policeman sees someone being assaulted by a thugs and says, no, today I'm off duty. So we can say that this is an omission. Let's say this person is injured or killed. So this person, in the case that is injured, he can sue the policeman because the policeman failed to protect the person, failed to protect the the victim when he had a duty to do so. So we are saying this is a negative conduct. For instance, another example is when, let's say, city council is installing some street lights. Okay, then they dig walls and leave them uncovered overnight. Right, then an old woman just falls into that pit, and sustains injuries. Okay, so we can say this conduct is caused by what? This is a negative conduct, failure to cover the walls, or failure to cover the pit. It has led to a loss. So we are saying this is a negative conduct on the part of the wrongdoer. So he can be sued, the city council can be sued for that. Then we move on to wrongfulness. You also have to prove wrongfulness, that this act which we talked about, this act or conduct is wrong at law. What is wrongfulness? Any infringement upon a person's subjective right. Remember, earlier on we discussed about subjective rights. And this right can either be real right, immaterial property right, personality right, or personal right. So any infringement of this right is deemed wrongful. So if you infringe someone's rights, this is wrongful. But one can say, yes, I infringe someone's right, I infringe someone's real right or immaterial property right, but I had a ground of justification. There is a justification why I did that. So now it brings us to the discussion on the grounds of justification under wrongfulness. So under ground of justification, we have 5 grounds of justification, just self-defense, necessity, then we have consent to injury, voluntary assumption of risk, then provocation. So if you prove any ground of justification, any one of the grounds, then that conduct, that wrongful conduct becomes right, because you will be saying, I have a defense. For instance, let's start with self-defense. One can say, yes, I injured him. Yes, I assaulted him. Why? Because I was acting in self-defense. But it's not just automatic. You don't just get you don't just get acquitted, or you don't just get the judges to say maybe you are not liable for that. No, there are requirements to prove self-defense. Let's look at maybe those requirements. Firstly, you have to prove that there was a wrongful attack by another person launched with the purpose of infringing upon the subjective right. You must prove that the other party, this party who is claiming now from you, now you are raising a defense that no, this is the party who wanted to assault me, or this is the party who wanted to commit a delict on me. So, and I try to defend myself. So, prove that there was a wrongful attack by another person which was launched with the purpose of infringing a subjective right. Number 2, prove that the attack had commenced or was imminent but not yet completed. So that means you acted. That means you assaulted him while he was trying to assault you, or he was about to assault you. Prove that it had commenced, the attack had commenced or was imminent, but not yet completed. This is very important, not yet completed. Let's say that you are assaulted and you are, you are lying in a pool of blood. Then the wrongdoer decides to go to his home. After 2 hours, you regain consciousness. Then you go to your home, you take a bath and take a nap carry. You go to his house and you assault him there in his house. And you're saying that I was acting in self-defense. There is no self-defense like that. This is revenge. So the act had already been completed. The attack had already been completed. And then the third one, the act of defense must be aimed at the attacker. That means you must direct your act of defense to the attacker, not his wife or his child. So it must be directed to him. Then the last one, the act must not be more harmful than necessary. For instance, if you are insulted by someone, then you take a gun and you shoot that person, and you say, no, I was acting in self-defense. There is no self-defense like that. You the act is harmful, more harmful than necessary. Then we move on to necessity. Necessity is where you are saying, yes, my conduct is wrong, but it was necessary for me to do so. For instance, let me give an example of a boy who is trapped inside a burning house. You know, they trapped inside a burning house and you want to rescue the boy. Right. Now you smash a door, a glass door, costing about $5,000 US. You smash that door and you get the boy out of the house. When you are being sued now by your neighbor for smashing the door, you can raise a defense that it was necessary for me to do so. Then if you raise that defense, then you are not liable in Delict, because what you did was necessary. For instance, another example, let's say you see your friend is about to be bitten by a poisonous snake, and then he's about to bite him, then you crash tackle the friend, you know, such that he falls 8 meters away, and in the process sustains maybe injuries on his leg. He cannot walk anymore, he's on a wheelchair, and he breaks his arm in the process, so his leg and arm broken, so you are being sued by your friend. So you can raise a defense that it was necessary for me to do so. I don't know what you do if you later discover that it was not a real snake but a rubber snake, but you have already injured your friend. Such is life. You know. Now, so necessity, again, necessity is 4 requirements which you have to prove. You don't just say necessity, then all of a sudden then you are found not liable. No, you have to prove the 4 requirements. Number 1, state of necessity must be imminent or should already have commenced. That means it's already burning, the house is already burning, or a snake is about to bite your friend, or it is already biting him, or someone someone wants to maybe set the house alight. That's when you intervene. Right. Number 2, a person could protect his own rights or the rights of another during the state of necessity. Doesn't matter. Then the third one, conduct during state of necessity will only be justified if it is the only way in which the threatened interest can be protected. So you must justify that smashing that door was the only way to gain entrance. For instance, if there was another wide door open, like maybe 3 meters wide open, you know, so you cannot be able to prove that it was the only way to protect the boy's life. So you must prove that what you did was the only way. Of course, we become wiser after the events. You know, after sitting down, when we are sitting down, and there I was stupid, I should have used that open door. Then the last one, the interest which is infringed upon in the state of necessity should not be greater than the interest which is protected. For instance, if you have to smash that door open, costing about 5,000 just to get your teddy bear from the room, then this is not justified, because the interest which is protected is less than the interest which has been infringed. Right. Then, of course, we have another ground of justification, consent to injury. Can a person consent to injury? Yes. Think of it. I know there are doctors in your class. Right. For instance, the patients, when they are going for a Caesar, when they are going for an operation, they sign forms where they know that they're going to be injured, they know that they're going to feel some pains after the operation and all that, so they consent to injury. So let's say that they're feeling some pains after the operation, and now they are suing the doctor saying, I feel some pains and all that. So the doctor can raise a defense to say, no, I am not liable because the patient consented to injury. Okay, but now, what is important is that one must act within the confines of consent. For instance, the doctor says, okay, I'm going to operate you on the stomach, okay, and the patient knows that is going to be operated on the stomach, right? And then later on when he wakes up, he discovers that even the doctor has done a head injury, as well. So we are saying that the doctor can be sued because you went beyond the bounds of consent. Then we move on to voluntary assumption of risk. There is a difference between voluntary assumption of risk and consent to injury. With consent to injury, one knows that he is going to be injured. But with the voluntary assumption of risk, it is called volent non fit in iuria in Latin. There is a risk of injury. For instance, if your children are going to Victoria Falls or going to any trip, the parents sign what is called those consent forms. Those forms. Maybe you'll be saying that those forms. In those forms, it will be written that the bus company will not be liable for any injuries, or if there is an accident happening, not going to sue the school and all that. So the parents sign those forms. But we're not saying that there is going to be an accident, but there is a risk of an accident. So this is voluntary assumption of risk. So if you are injured, after you have signed some forms, or you have voluntarily assumed the risk of injury, then you cannot claim anything. For instance, if Ronaldo gets into the pitch and is crash-tackled by someone, it's within the rules of the game. He cannot sue the other player because by getting into the pitch, he would have voluntarily assumed the risk of injury. So he cannot sue the other party. Okay, that's why players don't sue each other. Right, then the last one is provocation. Provocation is when someone says, okay, I was provoked. I did what I did. Yes, I acted wrongfully, but I was provoked beyond measure. Provocation is not a defense in criminal law, but it can be a defense in delict when someone is claiming some money. You can say, no, I was provoked. I did what I did because I found him sleeping with my wife. Okay, so that's provocation. In delict, it's a full defense, but in criminal law, it's just a mitigating factor. So if you succeed with any ground of justification, then that wrongful act becomes right. Now, we move on to fault. Fault, right? With fault, we want to see if the wrongdoer can be blamed at law. There are two stages. The first stage, we test whether the wrongdoer has a blameworthy state of mind, whether he can be blamed for his actions. There are people who cannot be blamed. For instance, insane people cannot be blamed. If you are assaulted by an insane person, you cannot do anything, even if you want to, because they are dolu in car parks. They don't understand and appreciate the nature and consequences of their actions. Right. And children as well, they cannot be blamed. So stage number one, find out whether the person has a blameworthy state of mind. And if you have discovered, okay, he has a blameworthy state of mind, this person is okay, this person is a major, this person is not insane, then stage two, then you just establish whether he acted intentionally or negligently. What is intention? Intention is directing your will to achieve your purpose. You want to shoot him, you just take a gun and you shoot a person. That's directing your will to achieve your purpose. Negligent is when you fail to act like a reasonable person. We ask a question, what a reasonable person would have done under the same circumstances. For instance, let's say you go through a red robot. You just go through a red robot and you ran into another vehicle. We are saying, okay, you acted negligently because a reasonable person would have what? Would have stopped at a red robot. Okay, would have stopped at a robot-controlled intersection. Okay, so that person failed to act like a reasonable person. So the test for negligence is what a reasonable person would have done under the same circumstances. So this is under fault. So a person is at fault where he acted negligently or acted intentionally. Then we move on to causation. Causation is not an easy one. It's not easy. It's always difficult to prove causation because you are trying to link the act to the damage. You want to say this damage was caused by a wrongful act, and this may be difficult to prove. Okay, now for us to prove that the act caused the damage, there is a test, the conditio sine qua non test. Okay, it's also called the but-for test. Right. We are saying, had it not been for the act, this damage would not have occurred. Okay. So, the conditio sine qua non is the think away test. Think away the act and find out whether the damage would have occurred without the act. For instance, you think away the shooting and find out that, think away as if it never happened and find out whether the person would have died without the shooting. So if you think away the shooting and the damage or result falls away, then we know that the act is the cause of the damage. So we are saying that there is causation or causality. But if you think away the shooting and still find out that this person would have died anyway, then we know that the act is not the cause of death. Is something else that caused that death. For instance, when we have a chain of events, because we can have a chain of events, it's not like a clear-cut thing. For instance, I take a gun and I shoot you and you die. I mean, it's there is conclusive proof that you died because of the shooting. But sometimes it can be complicated. For instance, let's look at this example. Here, the example, let's say T is a bank robber, gets into a bank and shoots X. Right, X is injured, is lying in a pool of blood. Then they call the ambulance. Ambulance driver A comes to the scene drunk. Right, takes X into the ambulance, drives negligently through a red robot and runs into another vehicle, right? And X is thrown out of the moving ambulance and sustains further head injuries. He bleeds for 8 hours because of these head injuries. They get to the hospital where N who is a nurse, administers wrong medication to X. Again, X who is bleeding, right, administers wrong medication. After administering wrong medication, then X starts to vomit. He vomits for 4 hours. Such an extent that X becomes so weak, right. Then later on, X is seen by a Dr. D, right, who after examining him, leaves the window next to X's bed open the whole night, and it's freezing cold that night. In the morning, X is found dead, and the cause of death is pneumonia. And then we're asking ourselves, who caused or what caused the death of X? Is it the shooting? Is it the ambulance driver? Is it the nurse who administered wrong medication? Or is it the doctor who left the window next to X's bed open the whole line. The cause of, what we know is that the cause of death is pneumonia. So here, it's a chain of events. So in this case, it's not easy to point out one thing to say this is the cause of death. But in such a scenario, we always look at the immediate cause. What brought about the result? What brought about death? For instance, we can say, no, it's D. Because he died of pneumonia. And pneumonia is caused by a cold. Right. For instance, the doctor's negligence caused the death. So the doctor can be sued. So you can pay. We are not saying these other ones are not liable. They are not liable in delict, but criminally they can be charged. But the one who is supposed to be paid in delict is D. This is the immediate cause. D is the immediate cause of death. So this is, for instance, in an accident, an accident can be contributed by many factors. The fact that the car is not properly serviced, the condition of the road, as well as the weather conditions. All this, and even the driver can be drunk. All this. So now, if you want to point out at one thing to say, okay, just because the driver was drunk, he caused the accident, it may not work. Because, there may be many causes. All right. So you have to point out at one thing, the immediate cause. What caused the death? What is the immediate cause? Because in law we deal with two things, the factual cause and the legal cause. The legal cause, what brings about death, what we call the causa causans in law. In this case, T is the factual cause because he's the one who shot X. But D is the legal cause. Okay, let's move on now. Now to novus actus interveniens. Right, ladies and gentlemen, the last element you have to prove is damage. Damage can come in the form of patrimonial loss or non-patrimonial loss. Your patrimony is your wealth, your property, your money. So we are saying there's been a diminution on your property. For instance, you've lost something of value, you've lost a house, maybe the house has been burnt down because of a delict, or the car has been destroyed because of a delict. So we say that you've had maybe patrimonial loss, there is patrimonial loss. Okay, or it can be non-patrimonial loss. For instance, it cannot even sound in money. For instance, if you have been insulted, if your dignity has been infringed, of course you cannot quantify, although you'll be claiming money, but you can not actually put a value to your dignity to say, okay, you went through my SMSs, you went through my WhatsApp messages, so I need $100,000 for that. You cannot really quantify the damage. This money is just to say sorry, otherwise it would not take you back to the position you were. So with non-patrimonial loss, it's difficult to come up with a figure, although you still have to claim money. So it will be sorry money. But with patrimonial loss, you want to be taken back to the position you were. For instance, if you had a car which has been smashed and that car costed about $30,000 US, you're claiming $30,000 to be taken back to the position you were. But when you are involved in an accident and you have lost an arm, even if they give you $100,000, even $1 million, you won't be taken back to the position you were. So this we call non-patrimonial loss. And what are the remedies? For patrimonial loss, we claim using the actio legis aquilia. These are Aquilian damages. You can claim using actio legis aquilia, and for non-patrimonial loss, you claim using actio injuriarum, action for injury. Anything which is a non-patrimonial, claim using actio injuriarum. Thank you very much.